Welcome back, folks. How was the break? Very good. What's going on here? Are you here? I am real. The girlfriend you have in there is not real. I love that. I love the energy. Welcome back, folks. How was the break? Coffee good enough? Or Red Bull? Because this day and age, we don't do coffee anymore. Now, let's keep the energy going. I have a guy backstage ready to come out. His name is Ashton Hettiarachi. I hope I don't butcher his name. I think he's the only one that has a proper jet lag. He came all the way from Australia. And he's going to talk about Openmesh, which is a cloud network. It feels so funny looking at you, sir. Ashton, you with us? It's your time, sir. Give him a round of applause, guys. Cheers, mate.
Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. I want to thank Approval Talk team for inviting me here today. My name is Ashton, and I'm the founder and product architect of Openmesh Network. Today, I'll be talking about danger of centralization and decentralization philosophy. It is very relevant that we are all here in Paris today. Around 2,000 years ago, Julius Caesar and Roman Empire took over Gallia, today known as France. If you had a time machine, and if you travel back in time, you'll be witnessing Gallic War just 15 minutes down the road. And there was a group of people called Parisii that tried to defend Paris against ancient Romans, but failed. After this, the Julius Caesar basically took the France broke it into 4 parts and integrated France into Roman Empire, regardless of what French people has to say. So throughout the history, there were many powerful people like Julius Caesar and empires like Romans try to rule the world. These empires and kingdoms have 3 things in common. Can I just move this? So it's centralized power, monopoly, and secrecy. In other words, a small group of people, powerful people, assume what is good for the society and plan and execute things behind closed doors. So how about today? We live in a modern society, far from the days of empires and kingdoms. Many societies have democracy. Everyone has a voice and a choice. A small group of people don't get to decide what is good for the society. And we are better off compared to the old generation. Is that really the case? I'm here to give you a different perspective. And in fact, I'm going to challenge you. Take a look at these large corporations. These mega corporations control 90% of the world data and IT infrastructure. The cloud and data is one of the fastest growing industries in the world. The most valuable commodity is no longer oil, it's data. That's why these large corporations invest billions of dollars owning data and infrastructure. These corporations own world's data, they own your data. They know weather, they know stock price, they know traffic, any city and every city. They know what products people buy online, and they also know what is cool and what is not cool. They know how to make people happy. They know what people worry about today, yesterday, possibly even tomorrow. And they also happen to own the largest IT infrastructure in the world, such as data centers, fiber network, cloud services. They also own most vital apps on internet, like Google Search and YouTube. They also own the largest social media platforms. With these social media platforms, they can spread certain political and ideological views and beliefs to everyone who's using it. So at a fundamental level, these corporations have read and write and capabilities for our fabric of a society. Unfortunately, some of these corporations have a more authority and influence than some of the countries. Most of their technology are private and proprietary and kept in secret. So remember I talked about the empires? So are we really far off from Roman and Ottoman and Mongolian empires? To me, it's like very, very similar. So what concerned me the most is that the very same companies also happen to have the biggest AI capabilities today. And they are all in a race to prove who's bigger and better. Often it's about Wall Street narrative and quarterly earning reports rather than innovation or healthy competition. Speaking of secrecy, to this date, we still don't know what happened at OpenAI back in November 2023. Why Sam got kicked out and why he was rehired. What was the underlying issue? We're talking about the biggest AI ecosystem in the world, and we have no idea what went on. In the old days, Ottoman and Roman empires only controlled certain parts of the world, and they kept certain secrets. But if you look at today, these large organizations, I think they have more influence and more distribution than all these empires combined. The thing is, we have 4 to 5 large corporations control the world data, world's IT infrastructure, and the largest AI capabilities, and we're supposed to trust them. For me, these highly concentrated power look like a perfect combination for a disaster. And we should be very, very concerned about this. Look, I'm not completely against these corporations. They brought so many things, good things to the world. But we shouldn't be naive about the flip side of these concentrated power. Yes, you might say corporations may have ethical and legal obligations to do the right thing. Maybe governments have plans to address for a worst case. But I don't believe that's that simple, because there's a fundamental problem or fundamental flaw in the whole system. Now, the big questions we all have to ask ourselves is that if we survive enough and if we live enough, another 50 or 100 years from now, to become a type 1 civilization and slowly colonizing our solar system, are we going to have a large corporations like Google, like Meta, controlling our entire solar system, IT infrastructure and data? Because if you look at the current trend, it's going to be the case. So just think about how it's going to impact us and in the future. So from a democratic point of view, not a single company or a small group of people get to decide what is good for society. We should share that right. Big corporations assume that they have that right and run with it, but that shouldn't give the right by default. I envision a world where trust is built into the design, not into the brands or people who are running it. Instead of relying on a small group of people, we should have technologies that are immutable by design and verified by widely distributed independent verifiers. So what kind of a design principles we should consider? I consider having 4 design principles for a large-scale network that benefits large-scale societies and systems. I believe that we should have open data and open infrastructure for the world without a single corporation or government is controlling it. At least the majority of it. So we need to consider IT infrastructure as a public asset. The public should own the infrastructure and then managed by people, not by corporations. I think it's important to get the design right. If you look at internet today, look at how far we came from the current internet. The current internet also people call it in Web 2. The core function of a Web 2 is to share information. In contrast, if you look at Web 3, the capability of a Web 3 is sharing information plus value, which is far more bigger than current Web 2. I think Web 3 is going to be more powerful and more impactful and far more complex than what we anticipate. I feel everyone has a responsibility, especially engineers and founders, to get the design right. When it's come to building a large-scale solution that impacts people, so it's very important that we take the design and take it seriously. To me, it's like going back to 90s where internet was still early and small group of people in Silicon Valley had an opportunity or given opportunity to come up with world-changing technologies like Google Search or Uber, Airbnb, or Facebook. Today, if you look at today, our world is more connected and we have far more resources than 1990s. So I think people in Web3, we should work together and instead of competing each other. So when I look at decentralized distributed systems like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, like IPFS, I find it very fascinating. Because for the first time in history, we have a self-evolving, a public infrastructure that are available for anyone not owned by a government or corporation. This is beautiful because it's a digital ecosystem that lives and breathes without middleman. This is why I was drawn into Web3 space and a decentralization philosophy in the first place. So to give you a little bit backstory about myself and the background. So I grew up in Sri Lanka. I experienced pretty much the devastation of concentrated power, corruption, and monopoly. I left Sri Lanka when I was 19 and been in the tech industry ever since. When I came across Ethereum back in 2015, I was quite inspired by the design and the philosophy and decided to go full-time with crypto and Web3. So back in 2015 and 2016, I used to run meetups in Sydney. And I also had the privilege to work with good projects like Phantom, Cosmos, and Ethereum. So my experience working full-time in Web3, it's not easy. My journey is extremely painful, especially stressful, like it's 24/7. But I learned a lot. My biggest turning point is when I try to help certain governments, especially regulators, try to legalize smart contracts and decentralized autonomous organizations. One thing was very, very clear to me that decentralized systems are very powerful and it's going to have a long-term effect on society. So I also learned in a hard way it's very difficult to get the design right because it's not like a private company, you just build it and ship it. So today I want to introduce Openmesh protocol and Openmesh network briefly, hopefully to inspire and give you some perspective on why open data and decentralized infrastructure is very important. So what is Openmesh? Openmesh is a decentralized cloud and Oracle network. We are fully open source Web3 project. So we provide immutable data, peer-to-peer compute like storage, GPU. We also have a big data analytics and capabilities that are designed to bring like really, really cool use cases into Web3 space. So best way to think about Openmesh is we bring the best of public cloud providers like AWS and GCP or Google Cloud, faster blockchains like, let's say, Solana or Phantom, and decentralized oracles like Chainlink. And then if you look at peer-to-peer protocols, peer-to-peer file sharing protocols like BitTorrent, all into one solution. So that is Openmesh. So we combine the power of traditional cloud and DLTs, distributed ledger technologies, introduce a better infrastructure for Web3. Our goal is to accelerate Web3 industry and support decentralization. So in order to grow and innovate any industry, you need a better infrastructure. For example, if you want to improve this productivity and quality of living in a living city, you need a better infrastructure like bridges, schools, roads, and healthcare systems. In Web3 space, we need the same kind of innovation. To me, Web3 infrastructure today like a dial-up. So we need to introduce fiber into our industry. So 4 years ago, at Openmesh, we applied first principle thinking on how to accelerate Web3. So we asked questions, what are the bigger challenges and the bigger problems we need to focus on? So we focus on 3 areas. The first is addressing the node operator economic viability. And the second is we need a better, faster, affordable physical infrastructure like CPU, GPU. And also we need a better data infrastructure, especially like data analytics and big data. So our first use case, it was called Open API. So Open API allow anyone to access cryptographically guaranteed Web 2 and Web 3 data, such as centralized exchange data like order books, decentralized exchange data like on-chain transactions, and popular Ethereum or blockchain data, and also the blockchain games related data. The main thing what we ask for our engineers is the data has to be free, but also at the same time the data has to be immutable. With Open API, anyone can power applications, run algorithms, train AI models without any limitations. So when I first pitch Open API use case to my engineering team, we had a very, very strict requirements. First, we said it has to be a single endpoint to get all data. It's like a single API. The data should be immutable and verified and validated. And the data should be available to anyone without having any registration, KYC, or license. And data has to be free forever. Everyone thought that was a crazy idea because who's going to pay for the servers, right? Because economically didn't make sense to provide a service for free forever. So this led directly to us to work on Xnode and address the economic infrastructure viability problem. So most Web3 projects go-to infrastructure provider is AWS. To host their services, because of the convenience layer, go-to place is AWS. But if you build all your infrastructure, you call yourself Web3, but you build all the infrastructure on AWS, where's the decentralization? So because it still is a centralized choke point. So when I meet people, especially in Web3 conference like this, I always ask, have you run a Web3 node? Because everyone say, yes, I was in Web3, I'm in Web3 for 5 years, so 6 years. I ask one question, have you run a node? Most people say no, because it's complicated to run a node. And it's also sometimes can be expensive. And the user experience sucks, in my opinion. That's why we built Xnode and Xnode Studio. So Xnode Studio is a web-based infrastructure design and development tool. You can build Web3 and Web2 infrastructure in a couple of minutes. So it's similar like in a web design industry has evolved in the last 15 years. Because it used to be you have to code everything, and you have to go to a web development company to design it, and they will develop for you the website that you want. But today, if you want to design a website, you don't have to code it. You can just build it very quickly. So we apply the same principle for infrastructure. You can, instead of spending weeks building infrastructure, you can build infrastructure in minutes. You can connect infrastructure components like a Lego blocks, because we treat these infrastructure as a templates. If you want to run, let's say, Ethereum node and connect on-chain data, and if you want to build a database, and if you want to connect that into front end, you can do that simply by dragging and drop an existing template. You can deploy everything in 5 minutes. So that particular use case, it's basically building a backend of like coinmarketcap.com. If you guys are familiar with the coinmarketcap.com, imagine if you were to build a coinmarketcap.com from scratch. It would take like weeks and months to build it. If you want a complex infrastructure, if you want to build, you can also do that by infrastructure development tool, or you can build that from scratch. So Xnode Studio also aggregate a large database of public and private and independent CPUs, GPUs, storage around the world. So it's kind of act like a sky scanner for infrastructure. It aggregates all the infrastructure, available infrastructure, and give it to you in a very, very fast way. So I'm also proud to say that we have the largest infrastructure aggregation capabilities in the world today. Recently, we partnered up with the largest bare metal providers and the data centers in the world to bring the most affordable physical infrastructure and fiber connectivity to Web3. Like I said, our goal is to accelerate Web3. So Xnode users, whether it's a developer or infrastructure a user or maybe a startup, they can build infrastructure in a lightning speed. They can also find most affordable servers instead of going straight into the public cloud providers. To give you some perspective, if you want to host, let's say, Ethereum node on AWS, you'll be paying about $570 a month, depending on the region. US regions are cheaper. But in Xnode, if you go through Xnode aggregation, you might be able to get that Ethereum able to run Ethereum node under $10 per month. So it's a huge difference, $570 versus $10. So it's actually great economical benefits for startups. We also launched a product called Decentralized Virtual Machine. We'll be distributing some of these cards soon as part of our engagement with Proof of Talk. You can use these decentralized virtual machines, and you can go to our Xnode Studio. And Xnode Studio, like an app store, we can just basically connect your decentralized virtual machine, and you can build your Web 2 and Web 3 infrastructure. So virtual machines, in short, or also called VMs, are fundamental for cloud technologies. With our decentralized virtual machines, we're expecting for a greater breakthroughs, especially in Web3 space, especially in startup space, Web3 startup space and developer ecosystem. In terms of our tech, all our tech is open source, and we never raised any money from anyone. The whole project is bootstrapped by the team and managed by a DAO. So our goal is to be transparent and open source. So we are around 26 people, most people based out of Sydney. So we flew all the way. We have kind of a jet lag a little bit today. So, so our team is spread across between Sydney, Europe, and US. As part of our governance and transparency framework, all our research and development is all public. And including like salaries that we get paid from the DAO, also public. So you can actually check how much the monthly expenses like a public company. We publish all our tech, our finance, everything into our community every week. You can go to our Medium page. You can actually take a look at all our publishing reports. I'd love to speak to you more about Openmesh Tech and our journey. Since we only have 15 minutes, I can't cover everything. So we have a dedicated workshop tomorrow about Xnode specifically. If you're coming back tomorrow, you can join tomorrow for workshop. You can take a look at the side events. If you want to meet our team today or tomorrow, you can scan this. So our engineering and product team will be here in Sydney for 2 days. If you guys want to meet us, here's a barcode, and you can book a time with us. So we'd love to meet you, and thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Ethan. Okay. Well done, sir. That's good stuff. Appreciate it, man.